So this video is only going to be going over items and relics from the 8.7 update. It is a huge update and it's going to be too long if I try to go over items, relics, and gods all at once. So part 1 is going to be items and relics. Part 2 is going to be the gods and all the changes that are happening. Obviously the biggest change that's happening in this patch is that boots and shoes are being removed. I'm going to kind of quickly gloss over that just because there's already so many resources out there that are going over those changes. So check those out on your own. I do have another video that I already recorded about that change happening that is kind of already outdated just from some of the things that I've learned between then and now. But that is all I wanted to say as far as an intro goes. Let's just hop right into the changes. The first change, which isn't necessarily an item or relic change, but I thought fit a lot better here, is that there is a little adjustment to the Phoenix in the classic Joust game mode. So once a Phoenix is slain, all ranged auto attacks are going to pass through the pedestal, where before there must have been some sort of bug where you could not auto attack through it once you killed the Phoenix, which is obviously not an intended mechanic, and Hi-Rez didn't want to keep that in. So you'll now be able to auto attack through those pedestals. And also, item related, I guess, here, the Benevolence starter item and both upgrades are going to be banned in Joust. So Benevolence, Animosity, Compassion, all banned. Obviously, Animosity was very, very oppressive from a dual standpoint as well. But there's tons of ways that you could use Benevolence, Animosity, and Compassion where tons of people were building it. So I guess they just figured it wasn't healthy for the game mode, and now it's being removed on July 13th. So if that was kind of your go-to, you're going to have to find something else to build in a couple weeks. Now, let's get into the actual item and relic changes. The first relic that's being reworked is Meditation Cloak. Before, where you kind of got just that burst heal, now you're getting a heal over time. So that the first, when you pop meditation, you're going to enter a meditative state where nearby gods within you, within 50 units of you, are going to restore 8 plus 5% of their missing health and mana on each tick. So how this works is you get that 8 health right away on the first tick, and then you get 4 more over 4 seconds. So it's technically 5 ticks of that 8 plus 5% missing health heal. The upgrade, very similar, except for you also reduce cooldown by 0.5 seconds. So that's a cooldown reduction of up to 2.5 because you get it on the first tick and then the 4 ticks after that. So clearly this item is going to be a lot better than it has been in the past, this relic I should say. Before it had just kind of minimal uses. It was more of an item that people who didn't really know what to build would kind of fall back to, and it really wasn't that useful once kind of late game came around. But now you see, which I think is the biggest change in this and the one to kind of really key in on, is that this 5% of missing health and mana. So when your teammates are low or you're low, you're going to get a lot more value out of this item than before, right? Because you're getting a bigger heal based on that missing health. So some applications, if you're in a team fight and both of you and your enemy team are all kind of low and you have this item and you pop the item, the relic, now you're going to be healing a significant amount and have an advantage on the other team. Or maybe you are defending Phoenix, right? And you need that sustain without having to go back to Fountain. Well, now you have Med Cloak and you're going to be able to heal a pretty significant amount of your health based on however much that you and your teammates are missing. And then obviously cooldown reduction is always good, especially on a relic. So I think this is going to be bought a lot more often. The cooldown on the relic itself is pretty big at 160 seconds. So you're going to have to use it wisely. But I do think that this will be built a lot more often than it was before. Sundering Spear, also getting a rework. Firing a bolt that travels 70 units, that stops on a first god hit, does 10% of their current health as true damage immediately, also reduces shields by 50%, and whoever gets hit by the Sundering Spear takes 10% increased damage from all sources for 5 seconds. And that can stack 2 times because the relic now also has 2 charges. So you can shoot the relic not only once but twice. You have 2 chances. You can hit one person with both. You can hit one person with or you can hit 2 people with 1 each. So it really kind of depends on how you find use for this item. You can still have that benefit of kind of chunking one person down and then also making them take 20% increased damage, which is kind of what it was used for before. But now you have some variability where you can also go, if you're playing like a Nike and a Hera, right? You can, the Nike shield, you hit the Nike with a Sunder, the Hera shields, you hit the Hera with the Sunder, and now both of them have 50% less shield than what they had before. So kind of interesting. This will be a good item too. And let's look at the upgrade as well. So kind of the same thing, but it does 15% of their current health as true damage instead of 10, reducing any active shields by 75% instead of 50. And the 10% increased damage is the same on the upgraded items. You can only get up to 20% increased damage even on the upgrade. And you can see the cooldown on this item is only 90 seconds. So you're going to have this up pretty often. This will be a good item in Joust too, especially if you're going into any sort of a shield comp, a Geb or a Nike or a Hera or someone like that. This item will be really good, and it was already good if you can hit it, but now you also have the added bonus that if you miss one spear, you still have another one that you have a second chance to hit them, even if it's only 10% increased damage. That can make a difference in a fight. Bracer of Undoing looks like that is getting a complete, they're taking it away completely, removing it from the game. This item kind of had some of the same stats that the new Meditation Cloak has now. So they just said, well, if this item already wasn't being built, let's just take some of the stats, put it into Med. Hopefully that item is built more, and then take this item out of the game. So this will not be there on July 13th. Bracer of Radiance, a brand new relic. So this one is really interesting. You place a radiant glow at a target location for 90 seconds. Allies who move through that glow gain 10% increased power if they're above half health, or 10% movement speed if they're below half health. It also is actually a ward. So wherever you place it, it's going to act the exact same way as a ward would. And from what I've been reading, it's not going to count against your total ward maximum. So before you could only drop 2 wards at a time. If now you have 2 wards down and you drop Bracer of Radiance, you can technically have 3 wards down. So that's more of an impact on Conquest, I think, because you don't need wards as much on this classic Joust map. But regardless, having 3 wards compared to 2 is always just going to be better than having 2. The bummer about this item is that if it gets destroyed, it can get destroyed just like a ward, right? So if the enemy team sees you drop a ward, or they put a sentry ward on top of this Bracer of Radiance, well, they can just go ahead and destroy it. That will reduce the cooldown by 20 seconds, which would take this 100 seconds down to 80 or whatever your cooldown is on. But you just have to be a little bit careful where you're putting it down and that the enemy team doesn't know. Just thinking of some of the usefulness of this item, you could drop this at your Phoenix if you're defending. You can drop this at the enemy team's Phoenix if you're sieging, as long as they don't see it. So there are tons of ways that you could use this, and I think this will be picked up in niche situations. If you're having trouble kind of pushing Phoenix down, I think this could be a good one where you're getting 10 extra power, 10% increased power. That might be able to put you over the edge. The upgrade, exact same stats, except it acts as a sentry ward. So I think this upgrade is kind of crappy. Paying 500 for a sentry ward, it doesn't really feel that great realistically. So I think if you're getting this item, you just skip the upgrade and leave it with the tier 1 item. Or if you can find value somewhere else and maybe this isn't the item you want, then you find an item that just has a better upgrade potential. All right, here it is, boots. Boots and shoes, obviously, being removed completely from the game. I don't want to go over this too much. Like I said, millions of resources out there that are already going over this. I'm sure everybody already knows about this change, basically. But so one thing that I learned is how the actual movement speed scaling works, which I will go over at the end of this video as well, just because some of the things that I said in my last video about boots and shoes of how I thought that movement speed items were going to be beneficial early because of this change are not necessarily as true as I thought they were, just because of how that movement speed works. So I'll go over that later on, but main point is boots and shoes being removed. You'll be able to replace them with another item. So just think of what item you weren't able to build before because you had to build these, and what is going to help you the most with that extra item slot. All right, let's blow right past that. Elixir of Speed, removed from the game. Only time you really bought this was if you sold your boots and you needed that movement speed back. You bought Elixir of Speed. Now that everyone's getting that built-in speed, this item is going to be worthless, so they just removed it completely from the game. Enchanted Spear, decreasing magical pen from 10 to 5, increasing magical power from 30 to 40. So you can see that the penetration on this item early is going away a little bit, and then the power is just scaling up to kind of account for that or make up for that. And just as a reminder, Enchanted Spear is the second tier upgrade into Divine Ruin, Spear of the Magus, or Spear of Desolation. So it's going from 30 to 40 magical power, 10 to 5 pen. Not as good early, but you're still building into this, so you might as well just know that those changes are happening. Heavy Mace, kind of the same idea. Pen going from 10 to 5, but the cost is decreased from 1,500 to 1,450. So, like I said, as the Enchanted Spear is a second tier of that tree, Heavy Mace is the second tier of the Brawler's Beatstick, Jotun's Wrath, or Crusher tree. And again, you're getting these items on a lot of gods, so just something to be aware about, that this doesn't give quite as much early pen in your builds. Ichabod, decreasing attack speed, the reduction on it for successful attacks, auto attacks from 10% to 7% per stack. So the enemy is going to be not slowed for 30%, but 21%. I think it's 3 stacks. And then increasing the physical power from 30 to 35. This was always a good item in Joust. A lot of people would rush this item, so you have that early boxing potential, and just kind of spiking early as a hunter to make up for how long it takes some hunters to kind of come online. So I don't know if this is as priority of an item, but again, with boots being gone, it might still be easier to build into this early because you don't have to give up another item to build this. So I think this will still be good in the early game for hunters specifically. Mystical Mail, changing passive damage from 40 to 30 plus 1 per level. So at all levels before, it was doing 40, and let's look at the actual passive itself. Enemies within 25 units are dealt 40 magical damage per second. So where before, at all levels, you're doing 40 damage, now it's going to be that you start at 30 from level 0, and then go all the way up to 50 damage per tick at level 20. So obviously in Joust, you start at level 3, so you'll be doing 33 damage per second at level, or when you start the game, if you were to have this item right away, right online. So you can see that it's not as valuable until you hit about level 10, right? Level 10, whenever that is, you'd be building Mystical Mail and you'd have the same impact. But where this differs, where I think it's going to make a difference in this next patch, is that this feels better to build later on because you're doing 50 damage per tick instead of 40. So if you're level 20 and you need to do a little bit more damage as a tank and you're always diving their back line, well, Mystical Mail is going to give you that extra 10 damage per tick on it. So that might be just enough to turn the tables of the fight and kind of make a big enough impact where you can finally kill somebody or you make them back or whatever it is. So worse early, better late. Wingblade, decreasing crowd control reduction from 20 to 10%. They're taking a lot of crowd control reduction away from kind of a lot of items just because it's pretty easy to build into right now without having to sacrifice anything else. And especially with boots being removed, there are just too many CCR options for items. This isn't a huge change. 20 to 10% is obviously a little big depending on how much movement speed you have, but since everyone's scaling at the same, I don't think this is going to make too much of a difference. You still have magical defense on this item. You still get the passive on it to just ignore slows. So this will still be built, just maybe not early on. Staff of Myrddin, another item that's getting a ton of attention right now from almost everybody. And I'm going to go over this, but one thing to note is this is already being nerfed before the patch comes out. So this is the original description of it, and we'll go over that. But later on, I'll also go over kind of the changes that are happening that are going to decrease some of these things from the original like rework itself. So decreased magical power from 110 to 95, but the new passive is when your ability has a finished casting, your ultimate, you're going to get something called Myrddin's Brilliance. You get 80% uncapped CDR, decaying down to 40% over 7 seconds. Uncapped cooldown overrides any other cooldown reduction, and at the end of 7 seconds, you lose that cooldown reduction. Only happens every 45 seconds. So let's compare that to what it was before. When your ultimate ability has finished casting, your next non-ultimate ability within the next 10 seconds will have no cooldown, but will do 70% of its normal damage and healing, still occurring every 45 seconds. So before, where you would buy this item is if you had a god who could use an ultimate, and then that god had a really impactful single item, or single ability, excuse me. So something like a Geb, right, where you hit the ultimate and stun them, and then you have a knock-up right away, and then you have a second knock-up right away. So you basically CC them for a solid, 4 seconds if you have this item with Geb. Same thing with something like Giannis. You hit that ultimate, and then you hit a portal on somebody, they're banished, and then you put the portal down right where they're going to come down again, and then you get another banish on them, just one after the other. So that's where it was used before, kind of a niche item. And what people are finding, since this item has actually come out already in PTS, is that it's just too easy to spam other abilities. So somebody like Baron Samdi or something, you can ult, and then you have a rotation of your 3 abilities, which are 3 pretty good abilities by themselves, but you have it up so often that the other enemy can't even fight into it. So it just was leading to not a fun experience for enemies. So they are going to rework that a little bit, but this is the original change, and then later on we'll go over kind of how it's being changed again before it's actually released on July 13th. But this will still be a good item regardless. War Flag also getting a rework. New passive, getting an assist when an enemy dies, provides a stack that gives 1% movement speed and 2% attack speed for 8 seconds. That goes up to 10 stacks. And then above 4 stacks, each time you damage an enemy god, you restore 15 health and mana to nearby allies within 55 units, plus you gain 8 gold. Let's look at the old War Flag. Getting an assist for a minion or jungle monster dying restores 6 health and 6 mana. So the old one, you could get that health and mana for a jungle monster dying. The new one, you only get that health and mana when you damage an enemy god, right? So a little bit of a shift there. But before, where you got 6 health and mana for jungle monsters dying within 55 units, providing 1% and 2% attack speed, now you're getting 15 health and mana to nearby allies within 55 units. So depending on how many gods you hit, how many times you damage them with an ability or with anything, this could end up being more if you're aggressive, right? So if you think of how this item is going to work, what they're trying to do is reward whoever has this item with their aggression. Because if you have those 4 stacks, you damage an enemy god, once, twice, 3 times, whatever it is, you're gaining that 15 health and mana every time you damage. So you want to be diving with this item, right? It gives you a little bit of that aggression that you're looking for. Plus, what I think is even nicer is you get 8 gold every time you damage somebody. So where benevolence is obviously being taken away, you want something that's going to give you gold. This gives you gold and rewards you for early aggression, which is already good in Joust. It rewards you not only in health and mana, but it also rewards you in gold. And it gives your allies the health and mana on top of it. Well, you do gain the gold by yourself, but again, as a support, that's something that is really, really important, and you don't want to fall behind in levels. So I think this is going to be the go-to support item for sure. It just does too much compared to any other defensive item, which we will talk about Sentinels later on. And then the War Banner, the upgrade, is also getting a rework. So getting assist for an enemy dying provides a stack that gives you 2% movement speed and 4% attack speed, so double what the original was. And then above 4 stacks, you restore 1.25% health and 1.25% mana to nearby allies. and you refresh the duration of the stacks. So theoretically, if you keep damaging an enemy, these stacks last forever, and you get these bonuses. You continue to get these bonuses every time you damage an enemy. So I think this is how it works. But if you had an Artio, right, and you hit them with your 3, and then you hit them with your 1 in Druid form, and you transform, and you hit them with a Sunder, and then you hit them with another ability, and then an auto attack, and then another ability, that whole time you're going to be proccing that 1.25 health and 1.25 mana sustain to all your allies and yourself. So this is going to be an insane item. If you can get to level 17, I think this is going to be your go-to upgrade instead of the War Banner, or what was the Spartan Flag, maybe? The other item in this tree, the other upgrade. So I think this is going to be really, really good. This is already really good, but the fact that you can refresh the duration of the stacks by damaging gods is just kind of crazy. So this is going to be my go-to item as a support, I think. Corrupted Bluestone, decreasing physical power from 60 to 50, provides 150 health. Will now provide its stacking benefit for applying corruption instead of actively tracking how many applications it has, and it lasts for 6 seconds. Decreasing attack speed provided per stack from 15% to 10%, and stacks now provide 4% increased protections. So all of these changes, in short, are making this item more defensive, less offensive, but I don't know if that's what you want if you're building Bluestone. If you're building Bluestone, you're probably going for that early poke that is valuable. So why would you upgrade that into something that does less damage and gives you more tankiness? In Joust, I just don't think this item is not the item you want to build into. And if you're buying Bluestone, you're really not buying it for the upgrade anyways. So this is the worst upgrade in a starter item that you don't buy, to upgrade. So I don't think this is going to be built very often. Death's Toll, still banned in Joust, but let's go over the changes just in case it ever becomes unbanned. Increasing the heal on melee cleave basics from 50% to 75%. So this is obviously beneficial to warriors more than anything because a lot of them have cleaves. Nike is the first one I can think of off the top of my head. Mulan, just any of the warriors that have those melee basics, cleave basics, you're going to be doing more health from those. It does not work on ranged attacks. That's, I'm sure, because people like Heimdallr have ranged cleaves, and 75% healing on him would just be too crazy. Same thing with Death's Embrace, increasing the heal on melee cleaves from 50 to 75, but not on the ranged cleaves. And again, these items are not in Joust right now. You cannot buy these in Joust, and there's no information that says that these will be available before July 13th, but it's still good to know those changes regardless. Berserker's Shield item. This is a very unique change that you see, and it doesn't happen very often, but they're only allowing assassins and warriors to build this item. This item was reworked probably 2 or 3 months ago or patches ago, and it was really, really good on hunters to the point where they nerfed, all the stats on it, and now it wasn't even really that good for warriors or assassins anymore, which it was kind of built for. So now what they did was they allowed only assassins and warriors to build it, put some of the stats back up, so 15 to 25% attack speed, and physical protection from 20 to 35. So almost doubling the physical protection is pretty good. Plus the attack speed buff. A lot of these changes that you're seeing are really beneficial to warrior, like auto attack warriors or auto attack assassins specifically. And I think you're going to see a lot more of them in Joust. You don't see too many of them right now, just with Bluestone being so powerful. But with a lot of these changes, I do think you're going to see a lot more of those gods. And if those are the gods that you play, definitely start getting ready to take advantage of a lot of these item changes. This will be a really good item on people like Erlang Shen or Amaterasu or Bologna or someone like that who really benefits from attack speed. Plus, you can almost double the physical protection as before. Kind of in the same vein, Shogun's Kusari. Not built too often right now because in Joust you're not playing with that many auto attack like hunters or mages, or at least you weren't. But now this item will no longer provide crowd control reduction, gives you an extra 150 health, and you do get an increased attack speed aura from 25 to 30%. So I think this item actually will be really, really good in the next patch as well. We've been playing a lot of like Soul and Chronos and auto attack mages. So something like a Shogun's Kusari where they're getting 30% extra attack speed at all times is just super, super nice. Allows you to shred phoenixes, shred camps, shred Titan if you need to, and towers. And we've been actually trying like Fafnir even, so you have that built-in attack speed stim with him, plus Shogun's Kusari, and we've been able to kind of melt objectives, which is kind of a lot of what you hear, that it's very, very hard to siege in Joust. But if you have some of these items and you know that which items are good against phoenixes and towers and titans, then that can just really help alleviate some of that negativity. Serrated Edge, increasing physical power from 25 to 35, so 10 is not bad. But also, let's just go over the passive because I think this item hasn't been meta for a while. So for every non-ultimate ability on cooldown, you gain a stack of Cruelty, and each stack of Cruelty gives you 10 physical power and 3% physical lifesteal. Basically, for all of your abilities that are on cooldown, you get these stacks. So for one ability on cooldown, you get 10 physical power and 3% physical lifesteal. If you have three abilities that are not your ultimate ability, so all of your abilities on cooldown, you get 30 physical power and 9% physical lifesteal. So this is going up to 35 power. So in total, you can have 65 physical power on this if it's fully stacked, and 19% lifesteal on it. Those are both pretty good stats. You get 20% physical pen, and you get 7% movement speed. So there are certain gods that this works really well on. If you think of Arachne, or even Kali, or maybe like a Erlong Shen as a warrior who just blows the abilities and uses auto attacks to kind of do most of the damage, this item will be good on. Kind of still a niche item because you don't really want to blow all your abilities at once on a lot of gods, but if you do play a god that is like that, consider this item, especially because now you have an extra item slot with boots being gone. Mannequin Scepter. I already think this item is really good in Joust specifically. You can burn camps super quickly, but now with the 8.7 MidSeason update, it's going to do increased burn physical damage from 12 over 2 seconds to 16, plus 5% of your physical and magical power over 2 seconds. So that's going to be more at all levels, right? Especially in late game, this is going to be really big. Again, allows you to do a lot more damage to camps, allows you to do a lot more damage to Phoenix and Tower and Titan, especially with we've been rocking again Soul with Mannequin Scepter feels pretty good. This might be the go-to starter, I think, for a lot of people, especially even junglers can use this, or assassins can use this and kind of jungle in classic Joust and just go over, pick up a minion camp and get back into lane quick enough where they're not going to lose so much XP from losing waves. But let's just keep going over the changes here. Decreasing the amount of stacks from 4 to 3, increasing health restored from 15 to 3% of max health, and increasing mana restored from 15 to 5% of your max mana. So when I see stats like this where it's 3% of your max health or mana, health, I just automatically think of tanky. So I think that even warriors are going to be able to use this item really well because you're healing 3% of your max health, right? So think about this item. There's still going to be other ones that you can use. Maybe if you go a double warrior comp, you can go War Flag, and the other one can go Mannequin Scepter or whatever. But this will be a good item in Classic Joust. Mannequin Mace upgrade, also increasing that health restored from 2.5% to 3% of your max health to be in line with the starter. And the same thing, I think this is supposed to be of your max mana since this one is. But increased mana restoration from 2.5% to 5% of your max mana. Sentinel's Gift, decreasing the cost from 600 to 550, increasing magical and physical protections from 7 to 10. So originally this item did have 15, I think, magical and physical protections. They nerfed it to have 7. Now they're kind of going right in the middle with that 10 on each, which isn't bad. And I don't think this is a bad item. But comparing it to War Flag, I just think you get so much more out of War Flag. There's not many gods that you would want to build this on instead of Warflag. Maybe if you and your team play more of a defensive style, then Warflag doesn't really fit you, and Sentinels can work because you're getting more defense now. But for Joust specifically, I think early aggression is just much more valuable. So I think Warflag is going to be the one you want to pick up 80% of the time. Conduit Gem, providing 100 mana, so just allowing you to stay in lane a little bit longer, rotate your abilities maybe one or two more times. But this item won't really be shifted that much. You're building this because you need early clear. You're building Sands of Time because you just want extra cooldown to rotate your abilities faster. So this isn't much of a shift. You just get a little extra mana with it. Vampiric Shroud, increasing health from 75 to 100, increasing physical protection from 10 to 15. I think this is an underrated item in Joust specifically. I think gods like Zhang Kui can use it really well. Even someone like Chang'e can use it really well. Or if you are playing into like a double warrior dive comp and you're a squishy mage, the extra protection is just nice. It can help you stay alive for a little bit longer, get your damage off, and survive more often than you would be able to if you didn't have it. So now you're getting extra health and you're getting extra physical protection. So in certain situations, just consider this one. I think it can be good. Blood-Soaked Shroud, increased in physical protection from 40 to 55, increased health restore from 12 to 2% max health, and increasing mana restore from 6 to 2% max health. So again, going to work better on gods that you're building somewhat bruiser, somewhat tanky, because this is going to scale based off of your max health instead of just that flat number. You don't get the bonus stacking lifesteal from the old passive, but regardless, you're just being rewarded for a more tanky style. And 15 physical protection is not bad either. So again, if you are going that bruiser style, that kind of brawler style where you're always fighting and kind of always close to the enemies, especially if they have a double physical comp, either, assassin warrior or warrior, this can be really good and just keep you alive long enough in Joust to make an impact. Sacrificial Shroud, increasing magical power from 100 to 115. Obviously, this does a ton of damage if you can get it online, but level 20 in Joust is kind of hard to do. So I don't think this one is necessarily as good in Joust. There's no one that can use it that well outside of maybe like Anubis, I think is the one that sticks out to me. So I don't know if you're building this one really. Warrior's Axe, getting a little bit of a bonus. So you get more bonus damage and health steal. Goes from 30 to 35 plus 1 per level. So let's look at the old one. Before, you would steal 30 health away from your target and restore 25 mana every 8 seconds. And that was at level 1 through 20. So no matter what level you're at, you're doing 30. Now you're starting at 35, which is already more. And if you think about Joust, you're actually starting at 38 because you start at level 3. So before, where if you were to fight right into the other team, you would damage them, you'd steal 30 health from them, do 30 extra health, damage to them. So that's a 60 health swing. Now at level 3, when you start the game and you fight into it, or you do that first fight, and if you damage them, you're doing 38 damage to them, and then you're stealing 38 health from them as well. So instead of that 60 health swing, now that turns into a 76 health swing right away at the first fight. And not only that, but now at 1 per level, it still scales later on in the game to the point where if you're level 20 and you have this item, you're going to be doing 55 damage to them, stealing 55 health from them every 8 seconds if you can damage them. So I think this is a really, really good upgrade for this item, and this one might overtake Bluestone in Joust, just specifically because the upgrades are so much better on Warrior's Axe. And let's just look at the actual upgrade itself too. So damaging an enemy god on Sundering Axe steals 5% plus 2% protection from items of your enemy's current health right away. So again, just better for sustaining, a little bit more defensive, but also still giving a little bit of that extra damage. You get 15 physical prots at level 1, 10 magical prots at level 1, and 75 health, and then 30, 250 on this item. And then Hero's Axe is okay too. When an ally god within 55 units of you is hit by a hard CC effect, you can give them a shield equal to 15% of your max health. So depending on your playstyle, this one might be the one that you actually upgrade to if you're like the only support on your team and you're using Warrior's Axe. But realistically, both of these upgrades are just better than the Bluestone upgrades. So like I said, I think this might be your go-to warrior item. Or you could probably double stack War Flag, but this will be a lot better. This will be a lot more competitive with Bluestone, whereas before it was just kind of a no-brainer that you just get Bluestone if you're getting a warrior starter. Atalanta's bow, increasing power from 35 to 40. Before, where it had 35 physical power, 15 or 25% attack speed, and 10% physical pen, you're getting an extra 5 power on that, which is obviously just good in itself, not too impactful, but realistically, paired with the passive, which I thought was already good. The item itself wasn't necessarily good up until about a patch ago because they nerfed it, but the passive itself, especially in Joust, is super valuable. So you get a killer assist on an enemy god, you get Atalanta's agility for a full 10 seconds, you get 20% attack speed, and you move. The movement penalty when you're attacking, backpedaling, going side to side or going backwards is reduced by 30%. So if you do get a killer assist, which in Joust you should be a part of almost every killer assist in the game, right? You should be teaming up and fighting as a team most of the time. So once you get that kill, the ability to kind of snowball off that with your movement speed, being able to move faster than the enemy and just hit them with more auto attacks than they can hit you with is just going to be really, really big. So especially again with boots being removed, this might be an item that you slot in earlier than you could before. Maybe you replace executioners with this because I know Xe got a little bit of a nerf, but maybe you build both. I don't know. This will just be, I think this is the passive is just too good, and now that they buffed it a couple times, I think you're going to see this item more often as well. Leather Cowl providing 7 MP5, the upgrade Hunter's Cowl providing 15 MP5. Neither one of these are bad items, but with the other possibilities that you have as, a hunter or something specifically, I think Mannequins is going to be really good on hunters. I think if you're an ability hunter, you're still going to want to go Bluestone, even though the upgrades aren't there. The damage early is still there. So I just think this one is kind of middle of the road, and there's no reason to really pick these items, above other ones. So good changes, but I don't think quite enough. Warding Sigil, decreasing the cost from 700 to 600. This item, I think, is still worse than both Bluestone and Warrior's Axe. And if you're getting this item, which is really kind of the defensive Warrior's item, why wouldn't you just get War Flag? I don't know. I don't think there's a reason to build this. With the sustain that's now also built into Warrior's Axe, I still think that's just a better item overall. So I don't think you want to build this one in Joust, really. Tainted Steel. This is probably the strangest change in this patch, I think, as far as an item goes, and just the identity of the item, and I guess my questioning of why they would change it this way. But decreasing healing reduction from 20% to 15%, and you're now healed for 100% of the healing reduced. So you have less healing reduction, but you're taking some of that healing for yourself, kind of like the Cerberus passive. And I'm going to go over all the upgrades as well, just kind of at once. Increasing the healing reduction from 20% to 30% on Tainted Amulet, the upgrade. And increasing the physical power from 40 to 50 on Tainted Breastplate. And magical power from 60 to 75 on Tainted Breastplate. So let's look at the old Tainted Steel. Enemy gods that you hit have their healing taken reduced by 20% for 6 seconds. Does give physical power, does give physical protection and magical power. So kind of that hybrid item. But the reason that you built this before, in my opinion, was purely for that 20% healing reduction at level 1. Right? You can get the starter and already have healing reduction built in, and you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about fitting in an early divine ruin or something like that that's going to take a place in your build. With boots going away, now you have room to build that item early. So you have less of an incentive to build Tainted Steel already because you don't have to sacrifice an item slot anymore. You can build Divine Rune without worrying about it. So Divine Rune, if you build that, let's say first item now, you already get 40% with that item itself. So why would you ever build Tainted Steel? I mean, same with like Pestilence or any of the other items. Taking away the healing reduction from this item just completely decimates the identity of the item to me. There's no reason to build this anymore on anybody, in my opinion at least. So one of the stranger item changes that I think has happened, and then obviously maybe these are nice buffs for the upgrades, but it doesn't really matter when you're not buying the starter. You're never going to be able to upgrade when you don't buy the starter. I guess you could wait for it, but these aren't valuable enough. If you don't have anti-heal online and you're waiting for these items to really get that, it's already going to be too late in most cases. So I would say this is the worst change out of all of them, and to not build this anymore really on anybody. But maybe I'm wrong. If you guys experiment and I'm wrong, just let me know and I'll start building it, but we'll see. Jade Emperor's Crown, increasing health from 150 to 200. And I do have this open over here just to kind of go over what this item does, because it's kind of one that not many people build and not many people see. So before you had 20 magical power, 50 physical protection, 150 health. That's going to 200. And you get an aura. Enemy gods within 55 units have their physical power reduced by 20. So you kind of see where this is a hybrid item. You get a little power, you get a little protection, and you get that power reduction on the enemy. And before, this wasn't really built that often, but again, with the changes where boots are going away, you might see this item a little bit more, or you might want to build this item yourself more on like mages. If you're getting Dove, again, kind of the same idea. They have 2 warriors and they're diving you. Early on, a Jade Emperor's Crown might be nice just because you have that extra physical protection and you have the extra physical power reduction. Plus at 2150, pretty cheap item. Cheap items are always kind of nice in Joust. You can get them on earlier and not worry about it. So that's just wanted to go over that, and this might be one that kind of comes in a little bit more. And then the last item shift here, Tyrannical Plate Helm, which to me is probably the most interesting one and one that I'm really going to start experimenting with. Decreasing that cost from 2,600 to 2,400. 200 gold is pretty good already, so that's 4 extra health pots or mana pots, or even a 2/3 of the way to a health chalice or something, right? But what interests me, especially in the classic Joust map, let's just read through the passive. Ally lane minions within 70 units gain 20% health and attack speed. So already pretty good. They're a 5th tankier and they're a 5th speedier. Whenever an ally lane minion dies within 70 units of you, gain 5 power per stack, max 6 stacks, but those stacks last 15 seconds. So that's not really that bad either. You get an extra 30 power if 6 lane minions die beside you. And in Joust, you're always going to be by your minions when you're fighting, pretty much. Almost every fight, you're going to be right by your minion wave, whether you're defending, whether you're sieging, whether you're in the middle of your towers. It doesn't matter. You're most likely fighting around your minions. So you get more value out of this than like in Conquest or something, right? You get 85 magical power, 40 physical protection, 100 health, and 20% crowd control reduction. So where the CCR is being taken away from a ton of other items, now this one has that 20% that is pretty significant. And again, thinking about Classic Joust specifically, a lot of the complaints are around, well, how do I take down their Phoenix when they're camping? Or how do I take down their Titan when they're just sitting in base, right? Well, this is going to help you do that. If your minions are tankier, if your minions are attacking faster and can do more damage to structures, right? That's helpful because it's going to take them longer to clear the minions, or if they're not clearing the minions and they're focusing on the fight, your minions are just going to do more damage themselves. Pairing this with something like a Emperor's Armor, right? Now the towers are doing less damage and they're doing it slower, and your minions are doing more damage and they're doing it faster. So compounding on like those two things, I think that combination, theoretically, which I need to try this out still, but I think that combination can win games, right? Or save games if you're defending. Just the aura is really nice. And now that you, again, same thing that I've been saying the whole time for these items, you don't have to buy boots anymore, so you have an extra slot for something. So now's the time to experiment, and I think this is going to be one of the items that comes into the Joust meta that probably won't be that valuable in other game modes, but in Joust specifically, I do think this item is going to be good. And 85 magical power plus the 30 power from if your lane minions die beside you, 115 magical power from a hybrid item seems pretty good to me. So I'm going to experiment with it. You might see a video that kind of me going over why this item is good, or maybe if I find out that it's bad, then that's okay too. But I'm very, very interested in this item now that they got that little cost reduction. So that's all the item and relic changes. But if you know what PTS is, it is the testing phase where before they release the items to the general public, they have people test it out on a server so they don't completely break the game before the items go live. And they had PTS, and after PTS, they are shifting some of the items around. So I'm going to go down to that section as quickly as I can and then go over just a few of those changes, along with a breakdown of how the actual movement speed increase works and how it scales now that boots are gone. So as you can see, post PTS balance, decreasing the magical power from 95 to 85. So it went from 110 originally to 95, now down from 95 to 85. That decreased uncapped CDR period. The top level went from 80% CDR to 70%. So right away after your ultimate, you're only going to have 70% CDR. And the biggest change, I think, is this time to decay. You hit your ultimate, you have 70% CDR. Now it's going to decay down to 40% over 4 seconds instead of 7 seconds. You can see high res's explanation right here. But now you're only going to be able to do 1 or 2 spells back, or have kind of double the spells instead of before where people were doing literally like 2 or 3 or 4 rotations of their spells before that Myrddin's brilliance wore off. So this will be healthier for the game. I still think it's going to be a good item. Just having even 2 rotations of certain comps like a Chang'e or even a Baron like I was talking about before are still going to be good. So I don't think this takes it out of the running for an item that you want to build, but it's just a little bit more fair. Sundering Spear, increasing the cooldown from 90 to 110. So everybody was building this basically and just sundering everyone, especially at high levels. They can hit those sunders pretty easily, and then decreasing that stacking damage increase from 7% to 5%. So just a little bit less damage, but again, there's so much utility on this item, I still think it's going to be a staple in Joust builds. Same thing with the upgrade, decreasing the cooldown or increasing the cooldown from 90 to 110. Transcendence, increasing the cost. So the last patch, they decreased the cost by 150. Now they're increasing it again. With boots being out of the game, you don't have to sacrifice anything to build this item early. So they said, okay, now to make it fair, let's put that gold amount back up so that it's not just that instant must build, which it kind of still is. It still does a lot right now. So Transcendence is good in this next patch too. Still kind of takes a while to get online in Joust, so sometimes you might not want to rush it, but it's really good on the Medusas of the world, the Chirons of the world, which are kind of the meta hunters right now too. So this item's still good, it's just a little bit more expensive. Stone Cutting Sword, decreasing the cost from 2350 to 2250, and then decreasing that protection debuff from 10 to 7 per stack, so you're doing less damage, and increasing the protection debuff on yourself from 10 to 7 per stack. So you're doing less damage with this protection debuff, and you increase protection buff from 10 to 7 per stack. That seems like less to me. Increased protection buff from 10 to 7 per stack. I think that makes you less tanky. But maybe this is a typo. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, this item still, I think what happened was that they're doing too much damage early and people were building this and just shredding, so they decreased that protection debuff on the enemy, so it doesn't do as much damage. And this will be interesting to see what this actual change is. So I guess stay tuned for that and look for if there's any updates to to these patch notes, because that's confusing to me. War flag, updating the description to better reflect how this functions when multiple war flags and banners are stacked. So no real changes, but basically the passive component of getting health, mana, and gold is only going to trigger when you've gotten 4 or more stacks from assists and not from a second war flag user. So these aren't going to stack and compound and be kind of unreasonable levels of health, mana, and gold sustain, which the item itself kind of already is in my opinion. So this will still be a good item. And lastly, this is exactly how the 18% movement speed works. And this is important. If you watched my last video on the boots changes, I thought that building movement speed percentage items was going to be important early so you could get a bigger advantage, just because of the way that I thought the movement speed stacking was going to work. But now if you look at this, at level 1, you have 0% movement speed. Level 2, you have 3%, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, all the way up. So at level 7, you have that full stack of movement speed. But if you're level 3, right, you're starting out the game and you're level 3 and you rush something with 20% movement speed buff, right? You have 6% movement speed increase, which is not very much at all. And then now you have 20% movement speed of that 6% movement speed increase. So it's not as beneficial as I thought it was. So now you don't have to build those movement speed items early. I still think at level 7, you're going to want to try to capitalize if you're ahead on those, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as early as I thought you did. So this is really good stuff to know. And obviously, again, I always encourage you to read through these patch notes yourself, because you might come up with some conclusions that I don't, or my thoughts might be completely wrong, just like they already were from the boots video. But that's why it's important to read through these and keep updated with all the changes going on, because things change so often that you want to know as much as you can. So again, as a reminder, I do have a little giveaway going on. If you subscribe to my YouTube and you're one of the first 50 subscribers, you will be entered to win one of 2 awesome chests for free. Same thing on Twitch. If you follow me on Twitch and you're one of the first 50 followers, you're going to be entered to win one of 2 awesome chests for free. So you have 2. If you do both of those things, you'll have a chance to win 2 awesome chests. But regardless, if you do one of them, you'll have a chance to win 1 too, which it's free stuff, right? Could be a skin that you kind of wanted for a while, and that's just completely free. So if you do like my stuff, enjoy it, learn something, I do appreciate likes, comments, follows, subscribes. That always helps me learn more about what I can be doing better. And just wanted to say thanks for all the support so far. I appreciate everyone who's followed and subscribed. Keep an eye out for part 2 of this, where we're going to go over all of the God changes in patch 8.7 that comes out July 13th. So thanks again for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.